That's some OG shit right there, mother flipper. Guys, how you doing tonight? I'm doing good. I'm doing all right. I didn't have a whole hell of a lot to talk about today. The news is doing its thing, and I'm doing my thing. And so, um, Fridays. I haven't been sticking to the whole, Throwback Thursday, What If Wednesdays. When they come to me on those days, then I use them. But I thought Fridays, well, I don't even remember what Fridays were. Mondays were motherfucking Mondays. Tuesdays were Tuesday, you're the worst. Wednesday was What If Wednesday. Thursday was Throwback Thursday. Friday, I think it was Fantasy Friday. I can't remember Saturday, Sunday. Doesn't matter. Anywho, I have a tendency to collect things. Like, I always have to be collecting something. It doesn't always have to be the same thing, but it'll stretch for a few years. um, in the 90s, I would say it was comic books. That's when it really started. Before then, it was probably video games. Between the Atari 2600, the Nintendo and the Sega Master System, the Genesis, the Super Nintendo, the N64, GameCube, so on and so forth. Up until like 18 or 19, so that was probably about the PlayStation days. But Genesis and Sega Master System, and Atari 2600. Atari 2600, I probably had about 60 or 70 games, which they probably made like 300-400 different games. I don't know, I'd have to look it up. NES, not as many, quite a few. But Sega Master System, I just had a boatload of games. I wish I still had all of them. But as the months have worn on, or years have worn on, it became comic books. Then it became kind of guitars for a little while. I gave up on that. Like, I'm just happy to find a nice guitar that plays well, and I'll just keep that one as long as it'll play well. I hate ice. It's so cold. So cold. Why do you have to be so cold, ice? Yeah. Well, I could tell you about my figure collection. I mean, I still have a stupid amount of figures, but I've gotten rid of a lot of figures too. But my newest thing is definitely retro gaming. I'd like to have the same collection, if not larger collection, of retro gaming gear, systems, and games that would compete with what I once had. It would be nice. I don't know if that doesn't seem good. Might still work. Anywho, it came in a bag for $20. It had this. I think it was 8 NES games. It was like 2 or 3 Super Nintendo games, and then about 10, I'd say about 10 N64 games, and N64, 2 controllers, wireless adapters for the controllers. I think memory in the system looks really clean too. $20. I was so thrilled. It reinvigorated me, and now I've got my eyes peeled. For a while, I would I would see things and I'd be like, Now, I don't play that game anymore. It's so rare to find retro video game stuff that when I see it now, I'm like, shit. If it's a PlayStation 2, or an Xbox, I've been avoiding those because I see them all the time now. Not all the time, but very frequently. So I'm like, you know what? They're too new of systems for me. Maybe the PlayStation and the original Xbox would be interesting. But in my travels, I've found a lot of interesting things. Things I'd never seen at the time. This is one of them. I paid $2.95, I think, for this. Right. So it's called the NES 4 Score. Let's read about it. For simultaneous 1 to 4 player excitement. Mind you, the games would have to be built with that ability in it. Call your friends. The NES 4 Score gives you and up to 3 other players the ability to play simultaneously. Any combination of 1 to 4 players can play on specially designed games. Just plug in the NES 4 Score into your control deck, and you're set to enjoy 4-player action. Any combination of 1 to 4 players can play on specifically designed games which feature the 4-player seal. if you remember back at the this is one of the cool features about this is the fact that it still had the box. It's rare that I find stuff in the box. I could read on and on, but there used to be these like little seals to signify, different things about the game. I think they still have stuff like that, but it's just different. Additional controllers are not included, by the way. But this is legit. This is the only reason why I bought it too, because it's actually NES. It's made by Nintendo. It's not like some other company. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought it probably, and then I'd be regretting not getting it. There's a few things that I have found. Like there was an old Atari computer. I should have just got it, bought it, purchased it, made it mine. And I came home and I looked it up, and it wasn't worth anything. But it would have been neat to check it out. It'd be like going back in time and being like, oh, I've never seen this system before. Tristan Skinner gave up this little hoo-hoo dilly. I think I may have shown you some of these things before. Red Alarm for the Virtual Boy. Now, if I am not mistaken, Virtual Boy was the failed attempt at the 3D gaming system, handheld gaming system that Nintendo put out, I don't know, sometime in the 80s, maybe early 90s. It was a flop. It was just red lines, and it gave people headaches. And people don't want headaches, and they want 3D, not red lines. Motherfucker. What's on the menu tonight? Got gummy worms. Salt and vinegar chips, if there's any left. My wife just discovered them in the bag I was keeping in here so that no one would see it. And if you remember, I was talking about those the other night, the cherry cordial, jelly belly, jelly beans, and dark chocolate. Well, I'm trying the orange ones tonight. 40 cents. It's 40 cents. Also, now here's an interesting thing. Sometimes I buy things and I don't know why I buy them. I know why I bought this today. You know the noodles you can buy for pools? Well, Kroger had marked down all of their summer stuff already. It's freaking just the middle of, like, not even the middle, still the beginning of summer. It's like, what the hell? Well, about the middle. And I'm thinking, like, you're clearancing out all your stuff now. It's like 90 degrees. Well, actually, today was beautiful, but, I mean, we're having beautiful days. Like perfect days for having pools and swim toys and so on and so forth. A little too early to clearance it. But, hey, their loss is my gain. Just like the flashback system, the Atari one I got for $7.50 there. Anywho, I have no idea where that was going. The Virtual Boy. Dang. Oh yeah, the food I was eating, the Jelly Bellies. I was getting off of that subject and on to a new subject. I thought I would occasionally, I'll like with things like this, if I find some stuff. I've probably got 30 games over there that I've found since I started collecting. I should put on the show and talk about. Actually, I should do a player and player thing. I mean, picture in picture thing. Hot damn, that's good. Sometimes you pour it just right. I try to do it the same every night. I just fail epically quite often. Favorite Fridays. Last week I talked about what my favorite class was to play in Dungeons and Dragons. Well, I failed to talk about the whole DMing versus gaming thing. Because I am primarily, I would say, a dungeon master, a game master, a master of the games, rather than a player. But I do love playing in the appropriate game, like when I'm just, I don't know. I wanted to talk about that, but before we get to that, I want to talk about, which means we probably won't get to that, I want to talk about my favorite race to play in Dungeons and Dragons. This is a tough one because I really don't have a super favorite. What I've played the most of or feel the most comfortable playing are roles of damaged characters. It's hard for me to play a character that just has a normal family he grew up in. Maybe they were middle class, and I always have to play these very heroic characters that came from a terrible situation. I don't know what it is. And a lot of races play to that well, if you play them right, I guess. But none more, I feel, than half elves. Now, half elves is an interesting class to choose if you play Dungeons and Dragons, because there's no bonuses, and there's also no negatives, if I'm not mistaken. At least up until third edition, third and a half edition. I don't remember fourth and fifth. I have fifth edition something around here that I printed out. I can't remember. I haven't even looked at it yet, to be completely honest. I know they do wood elves, high elves now, and I'm assuming that they will do half elves. I'd be surprised if they didn't. But those, it's such a great character to play because the background story, you can easily do a Romeo and Juliet with it, where the mother and the father loved each other, but the families warred and kept them apart or whatever. Or it could be, the opposite. It could be a terrible situation like Tanis, half-elven, whose mother was raped by a human, and that's how he was born. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice to play. That's a little darker than I like to play, but I don't know. Half-elves play to that so well. Like, they have a very different past. Elves, humans, you know what I mean? Like, elves are of a certain... In most fantasy realms, elves live either unlimited lives or, thousands of years, unless they have an unlucky early ending. You know what I mean? So they're these type of people, these, I'd say, higher class of people. And then you've got your humans, which would be probably the middle to lower class on the scale of... They're right in the middle, you know what I mean? You've got evil and good, and I think humans kind of fall right in the middle, in Dungeons and Dragons at least. Like, you're either good or bad, or you just don't give a shit. And if you don't give a shit, you're probably a peasant in the game or something. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Anywho, so half-elves is probably the race I've most often played. Yeah, my very first character that I really remember, Anix Darkfire, Darkflame, whatever the hell his name is. He was a ranger, half-elven ranger. And I remember he had a twisted past, like he was just left, or his parents were murdered, or they just sold him or something like that. I think they sold him. And he grew up in the mean streets, always being abused and beaten and stuff. And then I played a lot of other characters too. I never like to play a typical character. I love, like, right now, if I was going to make a character to play in a Dungeons and Dragons game, it would be like a dwarven ranger, or maybe, no, not a druid. Maybe. Because I never play caster class, unless it's a wizard who's power hungry. I have a hard time playing good wizards, I will say that. I can play great, all my other characters are just good. Whether it's lawful or chaotic or neutral, they're always good. Because I have a hard time playing a bad person. The dude abides. I changed my ringer. Well, I mean my notification. We'll see if it stays. I think Carol just found Jesus in a potato chip. I really like having it being quotes from The Big Lebowski or Adventure Time. But my phone's been effing up for a while, and so I'll set a notification. But if I plug it into the computer, proof that they use real potatoes. If I plug it in, they go away, and it goes back to like some shitty default ringtone. All right, you want to check this potato chip out? I haven't even really seen it this good. I'm blowing it up now. Yo, I'm blowing up. I'll try to center it as large as possible. Oh no, you're not going to be able to see it. I am so disappointed. I can see it. I'll make that the cover photo for the episode, the chip. You still won't be able to see it, but I'll put it up on Facebook. The chip. So I'd say half elf, but like I said, I don't like playing typical. Like, if I'm gonna play an elf, he's probably gonna be a thief. if I'm going to play a halfling, well, probably an assassin. I have played Dirk. Damn. They called him the Copper Kid because they always left 2 cheap coins over your eyes after he killed you. But he had this evil assassin had a code. Of course he did. I can't kill kids and just random people. It's not my way. So yeah. Now, on to the meatier subject matter. Playing versus DMing. Now, I take a lot of pleasure in the beginning of playing because I get to create this character and I get to write this history about him and he comes alive in my head. And I'm a pretty good role player, I think. I don't do it. Oh, no, I do. I'm probably one of the best role players I've ever met. I really am. When I get into it, I love being in character. But I have to be playing with people who equally like to get that way every now and again. Doesn't have to be every gaming session, but I just really enjoy it. Like, that's the most important part. And I usually have an end goal for him. Like, here is where he's starting. I don't know where these adventures will bring us, but in the end, I want him to end up here when I retire him. I know this is super nerdy, but if you write, I think Dungeons and Dragons, you're going to say, wow, is its own art form. I really do. Because it forces you to be creative unless you don't understand it. Like, I've known people who play D&D but don't quite get it. Like, and they think they're like, how do I win? What do I do? You know, it's like you're just trying to get the point across. That's not the kind of game it is. Like, you get to play characters that you're not. And so, for that part of it, and if you have a really good DM that's writing a good story, then you get really into it. But I can't say that any of the DMs that I've had are bad DMs. Peter Byrne, obviously, like I've told other people, hey Pete, if you're watching, was really the pinnacle of dungeon mastering for me. Every game I played that he ran was an emotionally driven game where I felt like I could role play, and it was just fun. And then there's the other side of it. There's running a game. Now, the nice thing about running a game is you have full creative freedom to create the content of the game. Not necessarily the direction or even the end game. I'm a really good... I'm not a great storyteller, but I can tell a good story. You know what I mean? I can create a good story, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And sometimes, like, I see the end game for the characters. Because whenever I run a game, I need to have the characters at least 2 weeks in advance, or at least a week in advance, with at least a 1.5 to 2-page backstory. Like, and everyone that I've played with down here in Virginia is really good about that. Like, even back home, most people were too. But down here, it was just like, people took the time, they invested into these stories, and I was just like, this is awesome. Because even though I knew it was going to be in Athalia when I started running again, I should go back a little ways and tell you how I got back into D&D. But at 18 minutes and 42 seconds, I'll wrap this up. I'll start another one and we'll talk about it in just a minute. Thank you for coming by tonight. It's episode 115 of The Road to 40 with Jason Oliveira. And as we always do, what do? Don't forget to make somebody smile tomorrow. Do your best to be a better person than you were today, tomorrow. I never had that in there, but it makes more sense, I think. And let's make the world spin a little happier together. I'm spinning pretty happy right now. So I'll see you guys in a few minutes for part 2. It's going to be all on why I love mastering the dungeons. I almost said mastering the baiting, but then I didn't want to because it's kind of gross. So I guess I already said it. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great night. Hopefully I'll see you in just a second. If not, I'll see you next time on The Road to 40.